Good afternoon, Weiss fans! As per fan request, I'm actually going to be taking a look at a Dog Days deck today. I actually didn't know anything about the Dog Days set going into it, so I spent a few days, playtested a few decks, and so far the one that's working best for me is this beatdown deck that I'm going to talk about today. Admittedly, the deck I actually wanted to talk about was a really hilarious mono-red deck that dealt with getting the level 2 10,000 on level 1 and just absolutely wrecking with it, but unfortunately it's not quite as competitive as just a really well-built standard deck. Since the Sayaka deck I used for my deck building tutorial was just kind of a funsies deck that taught how to build really good decks, I kinda wanted to do a more serious deck type for this one. So without further ado, let's get that list up on the screen. So if you're mainly just here net decking trying to find a really good Dog Days deck, then here it is. Feel free to copy it down and test it out to your heart's content. For the rest of you, this is a really basic animal trait core style deck that adds onto and takes advantage of a lot of really good power boosts that normally last until the end of your opponent's turn, and we'll look into more detail now. Admittedly, Dog Days hasn't had the strongest level 0 lineup, so our lineup's pretty much going to consist of a few toolbox cards that should give us field control until we can hit level 1. Lord of Viscotti is a pretty average level 0 plus 500 booster. The fact that she can dig characters up out of the waiting room means that she also has some mid to late game applications, so if you get her mid to late game, she's not a total dead draw. Gaul really isn't a very strong assassin, but he does have the added bonus that his power boost lasts until the end of your opponent's turn. That means he has a better chance of surviving and getting one more attack off, which is something that most assassins don't have. We're using 3 Yuki Suiciders. Don't worry about her second ability, we don't really run heroes. Vert gives your center slot plus 1000 power, which is really great for level 0, but also incredibly situational. Her main use is counteracting lucky opponents who just happen to get 2 level 0 assists and has an obnoxiously strong center slot character. Leo is a slightly better assassin than Gaul, standing at 4500 if you can tap 2 back row actors. Riko's an interesting tech card. She's got shift, so if you happen to get her in your clock at level 0, then you can pull her out so you have another 0, or you can use her second effect to get rid of any zeros that were causing you too much damage. The deck fares a lot better at level 1. It's got one really great back row assist character and 2 fairly decent beaters. Leo's first effect is absolutely hilarious because it totally counters salvage triggers. The actual battle phase happens after they salvage, so you get the power boost and then you step over their character on their turn after they salvage, and that's pretty awesome. That's situational though. Her main effect is her second effect that lets you rest her and then give one of your animal characters plus 1500. Since all of our main beaters are going to be animals, it effectively turns all of your level 1s and even some level 2s into very good assassins. Rouge will be acting as our main level 1 beater. She only encores for 2, and the tech in this deck is incredibly cheap. That means you can encore over and over again without feeling too bad about it. She's also an animal, which makes her a target for Leo's effect, which makes her ostensibly an 8000 that can keep coming back. Yes, please! Milla will be acting as Rouge's backup. If you're running a little low on stock, probably from encoring Rouge, then she acts as a 7500 naturally, and, again, with Leo's boost, she stands at 9000. That's good for a level 2, but to have that at level 1 can be pretty devastating. Level 2 isn't nearly as power heavy as level 1 is, but it does have a lot of really great tools you can use to finish the game off quickly while keeping yourself alive. Sudden Declaration of War Leo is a very advanced card and also the backbone of this deck, so I'd like to talk about it in detail. Her first effect is incredibly costly. You don't notice the effects of it first when you're first playing it, but it can be incredibly detrimental to your health if played incorrectly. To soften the blow a little bit, if you still have level 1 Leos in your back row, you can actually trigger their effects off of this effect. That high cost does come with some advantages though. Her second effect is incredibly amazing for a level 2. You can pay 2 stock and discard 1 card from your hand to the waiting room to look in your clock for 1 animal character. Keep in mind this is an animal deck, all of your characters are going to be animals. And not only do you get it back, but it immediately comes into play. Since the card is going directly from clock to stage, you can do a few really neat tricks with it. For example, if you have one of these very cards in your clock, you can actually use this effect to get it into play from your clock without having to give your opponent the free character. You can use it to fill up your back row if you don't have both of your back row characters in play. You can get a third beater if you for some reason weren't able to play 3 beaters for the turn. The possibilities really are endless, and you should explore with this card the best you can if you're going to be picking up Dog Days as your main set. Oh, and did I forget to mention its main application? It heals your clock on level 2. Not just once either. You can use this effect multiple times. So if you can keep her alive for a while, you have your very own little fountain of youth going that'll keep you from getting to level 3 too early. Also, do not forget, if you have 2 of these in play, or heck, if you can manage to get all 3 of them in play, all you have to do is play the Climax card 1 time, and you can trigger each of their effects if you can pay for all of them. Ricotta's not quite as good. She's mainly a toolbox card. If you can pull off her Climax combo, it's mainly used to get rid of their back row. I don't really see a reason to run more than 2 of this card. Also, don't pay too much attention to her second effect. It's pretty much just a really bad version of our level 1 Leo. We tech in 3 of the level 2 backup. You don't really need power at level 1, so we're not going to use that one. We're going to use this one, especially to keep our Leo alive so we can keep using the healing effect. Level 3 is slightly complicated, so bear with me. 3 Milahua because she heals and she also has a pretty good burn effect. Don't underestimate the power of a really good burn effect. 1 extra damage might not seem like a lot right now looking over this list, but believe me, 1 damage can win games. We tech in 2 Lion King Leo because I just really love cards with Bodyguard. For those that don't know, if you put this card in your center slot and your opponent declares an attack, then as long as she's not reversed, it becomes a frontal attack to her. This means they can't poke at your empty slots for more damage to try to finish the game off quickly, and they also can't side attack for stock. They probably won't be side attacking a level 3 anyway, but it's nothing to complain about. This also means that as long as this character can withstand all 3 of your opponent's front row characters, then you never have to worry about restocking your field because everybody's gonna live. Her second effect isn't that bad either. I mean, you can pretty much turn 1 card in your hand into an event that gives one of your characters plus 2,000 during yours and your opponent's next turn. Speaking of which, Grandvert is a level 1 event that gives one of your characters plus 2,000 during yours and your opponent's next turn. We use these climaxes at 4 each because of the climax combos. Yeah, not much more explanation needed. Gold bar triggers are still frickin' awesome. Also, I should probably throw in that because this is a gold bar trigger, if you happen to trigger it on accident, it goes to your hand, so you always have it for the climax combo. Other than that, there's not much explanation needed. Moving on. These next cards are the honorable mentions. They're the cards that I couldn't find a room for in the deck, but you should still take a look at if you're building a deck of your own. This is the level 2 I was talking about before. It's a really funsy card, and you should find a way to use it if you can. With the right supporting cast, this character can come out on level 1 and be a super destructive force pretty much the entire game. Its effect might seem a little too costly, taking the 1 damage if it goes to the waiting room, but at the same time, with the right supporting cast, this card can pretty much just never die. There's 1 card that removes it from play if it were to normally be sent to the waiting room so you don't take the 1 damage, and another card that keeps bringing it back from the removed from play area. I found Monster Ball to be a little too expensive for my tastes, but if you can figure out a way to generate the stock for it, it really is quite a good card. This 1 card can keep 2 of your characters alive for a turn, so it's a lot cheaper than encoring them. I mean, for 2 stock, you can do the work of 6 stock if there were 2 characters you wanted to encore anyway. Sinke the Summoned Hero seems to be a really popular level 1 choice, and I tried it in testing. I understand it, but I don't agree. Since the deck doesn't have a reliable brainstorm, this is kind of a good way to cycle through your deck, I guess. But it only cycles through 1 card at a time. I wouldn't really recommend encoring this character, so you're only going to get his effect once anyway. You're cycling 1 card. If you happen to hit a climax card on accident, then the opponent gets -1 soul, which is okay, I guess, but I'd rather honestly just have the climax. So I don't like it, but go ahead and give it a shot. Who knows? Maybe you'll find that it really works for you. Alright, I think that about wraps things up. If you liked the deck, then don't forget to leave a like. Those things really do help me out more than you could ever know. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see even more Kudou releases, and leave a comment below if you have an idea on what you want me to look at next. Also, you could go check out the other videos on my channel. I mean, if you really wanted to. Sayonara!